traditional businesses. Obviously abroad, globally, and as you know, Dollar Shave Club has been acquired, by a large FMCG player. And there's Airbnb, there's Amazon, which represents retail and hospitality, as well as in India, closer to home, there's banking that's being transformed by Paytm, and food ordering that's been transformed by Swiggy. At the APAC level, if you see, these numbers are serious. Now, the reason I'm talking about APAC is because clearly we are India is a market as a part of Asia Pacific. We may be 3 or 4, 5 years behind some of the countries in this market, but we probably have the most potential when it comes to digital growth. So out of the 4.1 billion population, we actually represent about 1.2, 1.3 billion. But out of the 1.9 billion internet users, we only represent, about 1/3 of them. So there is about 500 million more internet users that can come in from India in the next 5 to 10 years. And a lot of mobile subscribers, active social media users are from this country. If you take any report today, social media alone commands 150 to 200 million users in India. And that is, a serious growth. In fact, the recent digital bid for IPL's next 5 years was the most heavily contested bid as far as its digital rights are concerned. You had Facebook bidding for it, you had Airtel bidding for it, and eventually Star won it because they had a comprehensive bid along with it for television as well. So that clearly tells you that in India, digital has immense growth and it is growing at a compounded rate of 30% annually. So what is this doing? It also means that consumer spending in Asia is going to increase by 2025. And India ranks about number 2, number 3 in this, all the countries in Asia in terms of growth in consumer spending. Now, you take the growth of digital as how compounded it is, and you add that to the compounded growth in consumer spending, and you get an opportunity across digital services as well as digital products. And I'll talk about both of these in a bit of time. This is a digital disruption index as per Economist, which was released last year in the year end, which said that in the next 12 months across these industries, the digital disruption is expected. Obviously, the lowest being the industrial or manufacturing sector, but the highest being the industry that I belong to, which is the media or the advertising industry, and then followed by telecom, consumer, and so on and so forth. And this was a survey done by Economist. While this says in the next 12 months, I think disruption is not an event. It's not that disruption is going to happen today. What I mean by disruption, Paytm did not happen last year or the year before that. It was something that's been happening for the last 10 years. It's only now that we realize that there is a wallet player that's got into banking and digital banking in such a big way. India did not become digital only because of demonetization. Yes, that was a big fillip around it, but it was already the sort of direction in which the country was moving towards. So when you think about it, that disruption is not an event, it's a process, you start to realize that you need to then start the process before the event happens, or before you actually are surrounded by everything and it's the technology of today. If you adopt it much earlier, you're able to ride the wave and also learn along the way as it disrupts your business possibly and other businesses around you and brands. Also, this is my favorite quote, and I quote it for marketers. Marketers need to understand that the electric light did not come from the continuous improvement of candles. So what this really means is that we are too focused as marketing community and advertising community in trying to improve quarter on quarter. We have short-term goals that we go one after the other. We try and improve CTR clicks, organic engagement, and whatnot. These are all the terms and terminologies that I hear in quarterly reviews. And they are great. I am not at all against incremental improvement. But what that does is that a lot of bandwidth, share of mind, and in general, focus of digital teams across in companies and even the CMOs and the CEOs is focused more on the next quarter or the quarter after that or the Diwali after that and so on and so forth. And that's fair, but what that does is you take the eye off of what digital is doing at a larger scale across the businesses. And that is why today you hear this very big buzzword called digital transformation, because people who are the most digitally evolved in organizations are focused on delivering quarter-on-quarter results, but are not thinking 3 years down the line and 5 years down the line. And I think that's very, very important as a marketer and as an agency that I look at, where you need to carve out at least 30% of your time in trying to see what you can do today that will have medium-term impact, which is 2 to 3 years down the line, and long-term impact, which is 5 to 10 years down the line, right? It's also known as now, next, and new. So 70% of your time should be spent on the now, 20% on the next, and 10% on something absolutely new that you have not tried. And what are these things that I'm talking about that I believe in the next 10 years are going to be as mainstream or even more mainstream than social media is today, or just the way social media scaled up over the next 10 years. And here are some of the technologies that I believe marketers should start thinking and investing in now as far as India is concerned, because my belief is India's growth rate in these technologies, in these areas, is going to be faster than anybody in Asia Pacific. And it's not just my belief. I'll show you some research reports that also talk about it. And this is not just going to impact marketing, but it's going to impact consumer behavior across. So anybody who is born post 1990s or 1995 will be a consumer of these technologies in the next 10 years. And let's talk about how fast and what growth are we seeing in this. This was a survey done across Asia Pacific with the youth, and they asked them what are they most excited about. And they talked about AI, they talked about augmented reality and virtual reality, and IoT, Internet of Things. These are the technologies. Out of these, obviously, driverless cars, cars that are connected cars, cars that use technology to enhance the experience of driving was one of the most talked about. And this is the youth in Asia Pacific talking about it. So let's look at the first one, which is where are we on AR and VR globally, and then in Asia Pacific, and then obviously a little bit of where India falls into that. Now, AR and VR in the last 2 years has had some serious investment in the industry across Google, Microsoft, Facebook, as well as now Apple trying to launch the first version of its AR-enabled phone, and Samsung, which has Gear VR, and so on and so forth. How many people here have first-hand experienced the Microsoft Hololens? Anybody? Trust me, the moment you experience it, it will change your perception of what the future of computing can be, right? I have experienced it firsthand myself, and I can tell you, it seems like the really early days of the desktop computer, which was clunky, which was difficult to handle, and which seemed like, oh my God, this takes so much of time to do things. But it exactly is that, but in the form of a wearable glass which can do computing, which you can do on your computer. So it can work on Excel, it can work on PowerPoint, you can create objects on the fly which are 3D, you can turn them around in your hands, and it's extremely futuristic. The experience is wow. And it's honestly, for the technology of today, it's rather stable. And it is something that definitely Microsoft seems to be backing itself on a lot. And you will see more such technologies coming. Globally, augmented reality is going to be 3 times larger than virtual reality in 2020. And these are the ways in which it will grow over the next 10 years. So, you have VR glasses, you have, PCs where VR is focused on gaming today. When it comes to Oculus, people are using it for fitness, treadmills and so on and so forth. By 2018 to 2020, we see that VR will be holograms. It will have gloves that are touch sensors, which will create stuff. It will also have a huge impact on industries like the medical industry, the education industry, the construction industry, right? Overall, from a commerce perspective, VR will be integrated into daily life, and this is predicted by 2023, right? And house buying, shopping. In fact, Alibaba has, in China, launched a VR experience for shopping. So they've actually done that. It's still in beta stage, but it's a new launch that they've done and worth looking at, right? In fact, in 2020, it's expected that VR devices, 67 million will be shipped. China obviously leads this, followed by the Southeast Asian countries and then India. But this is one of the most interesting trends in terms of devices that's happening. Coming to APAC in terms of AR, VR, APAC is going to grow the highest at 97% year on year by 2020. And out of this, India is also going to be driving, one of the markets that's going to drive this growth, right? Look at, these are the industries that it's going to disrupt: healthcare, engineering, real estate, retail, military, and education. And these are the applications around which it's going to have. The next aspect that the youth of APAC are really excited about and excites me a lot is AI. Currently at its rudimentary stage and known as chatbots for most marketers currently, and their interaction with AI is around that limitation. But it has beyond that. AI and automation could go hand in hand, and the future of your media planning or your marketing plan in itself could be created by data, analytics, and a lot of artificial intelligence. Purely because a lot of connected data is available in marketing field in itself. So right from billboard data to TV data to print data to digital data, obviously being the first one that has all the connected architecture. And when you think about that, given the cost of resources to run marketing, to run media plans, it won't be a surprise if 5 years later, at least 15 to 20% of the planning is done through the help of machines, and maybe even more. I'm being conservative when I say 20%. My belief is it's going to be more than 20% in the next 5 years, right? In terms of AI and its growth, it's probably the largest global industry. It outstrips AR and VR in terms of global growth by 2024. The number is mind-boggling as to what Alibaba does in China. And obviously, these learnings will come to India automatically, given that all the Chinese players, both handset and e-commerce players, are entering India very, very aggressively. Alibaba's customer service chatbot, served 6.32 million customers. That's crazy. On the 11/11, which is their big sales day, much like the big billion day that's there in India. Obviously, their big billion day is actually worth some 13 odd billion. And it took the load of 52,000 customer service representatives. This has mind-boggling, when you try and connect it with the amount of customer service representatives that are there across any of the businesses in India, and if there could be a chatbot that could actually service that many customers, and once customers make that transition, much like customers today have made the transition of tweeting. If you have a problem with an airline, you call their line, you have to wait for 20 minutes, but if you tweet them, the response is instantaneous. How many people have felt that impact? How many people have tweeted to an airline and seen a much better response? I have, for sure, right? So that's clearly where even chatbots will move to. It's all about habit and where customers get the best response, the quickest response. And I think this is definitely one to watch out for. It's not just AI, it's also real robots. So right now we have these voice-enabled AI devices like Google Home and Amazon Dot, right? And these two clearly allow you to interact with a speaker. It will translate into a robot. And I have been to CES Las Vegas last year, And it was an absolutely transformative experience to see how many companies globally are working on personal use robots that will be in homes for people to be assisted by. Unlike in India, where talent is, or let's say house help talent is very much available, information, or you can ask somebody to know information. In the global markets, a lot of people live alone and they need people, assistance, companion, and that's where this rise of AI robots is coming from. And the faster human beings get into nuclear families and more just two people or just one person, this becomes more and more the reality of the world. Even in India, obviously, the cost of having house help and just the availability of house help is going to change over the next 5 to 10 years. So my guess is as good as yours as to where this will be in 5 to 10 years' time. Talking about the third aspect, and this is probably the largest transformation that's going to happen with the use of internet and digital, which is Internet of Things. Now, you know, a lot of mumbo jumbo, this is quite a buzzword, it sounds very, you know, it sounds like a jargon at point, but Internet of Things is a very simple concept. Any device, right from your watch to your washing machine, to your microwave, to your water purifier, to your car, to any other device that you see around you, if it was connected to the internet and it also could take intelligent decisions or suggest intelligent decisions to you. For example, your refrigerator could tell you when you're out of milk, out of tomatoes, and could order it for you based on a pre-decided rule that you have given it. That would save you a lot of domestic time in trying to manage these things, correct? Already there are buttons to order. You know, Amazon has this button where you can directly order for something from, you know, if you wanted to order, brands are launching these buttons. Similarly, what if there is a connected refrigerator that does that? Obviously, there are connected cars, driverless cars, connected cars that actually can track everything from distance to traffic to whatnot. So IoT is that, and it is something that's growing exponentially. In APAC and in India is the third fastest spender in IoT in Asia Pacific. It's going to be the third fastest spender. Let me show you some of the numbers across, you know, by 2020. That's how many devices going to be connected globally. China obviously leads this as well as one of the leaders in the Asia Pacific market purely because of their manufacturing prowess and in general the disposable income out there and the overall market opportunity that's there in connected devices. Now, beyond these connected devices, what it means for marketers, what it means for consumers is the data that it throws up. Today, a Fitbit or let's say the Indian player Goki or let's say Apple Watch will have immense amount of data on your fitness, which earlier was never available. That data was not digital ever. You went for a run, nobody knew you went for a run, right? I mean, even in the era of social media in 2010, if you went for a run and put up a snap, I wouldn't come to know how many kilometers you ran. I had to rely on your update or tweet saying I ran 10 kilometers. But now on the Apple Watch or any of the Fitbit devices, I know who's a runner, I know who's a walker, I know who actually goes and works out in the gym, I know your workout patterns. That's a lot of data, right? That's going to these device guys, which is being generated and aggregated, which gives them a lot of information. And that's just one device, one small device. So now when you think about a connected home, a smart home, when you think about connected devices, the amount of data, connected cars, the amount of data that generates about consumers is absolutely mind-boggling. Much like the amount of data today Facebook generates about you and me. Facebook knows when you move from one city to another city, it prompts you to check in, doesn't it? So it knows where you are traveling. It knows if you have moved cities. Well, you tell Facebook when you get married, right? You tag new friends, so Facebook knows you have new friends that are there. So much of your life is shared on Facebook, and this data was absolutely non-existent 10 years ago. And that's why today Facebook is one of the fastest growing digital platform and rivals Google, is because of this consumer data that it allows you and me to market and target to. Yes, there are talks on privacy, but none of this data is individually identifiable. It means I can't know your name or where you stay, but I know that you are one among 250 million people or 225 million people that are 35 to 45 male, wanting Nike shoes and running every morning, let's say. So that's the way this data becomes intelligent and more niche targeted, and that's what the growth of Internet of Things is going to do, an impact to the digital and in general businesses across in terms of the data explosion that it provides. It's going to be, so this survey was done by IDC across 13 countries, and here is the top 5 countries for IoT spend by 2020. So India is going to be number 3. It's above Australia and Indonesia, right? Indonesia is still palatable, but it's above Australia when it comes to its IoT spend, right? So that gives you a sense that India is not, in our minds, we may think of it as a technology or at least a hardware technology laggard. We may think that we are more of a software services country, but it is a country where consumer is upgrading faster than you and me assume that they are upgrading. Yes, India is a diverse country. Yes, that's not the truth for the whole of India, but trust me, the whole of India has 1.2 billion people. Even if it is the truth for 50 million people, that's a lot of people with